So start by taking a band and anchoring it somewhere above you like this. Then you're gonna get your hand in the band like this, nice and tight. And you're gonna take a step back with the working side arm and then drop down to one knee. This is the setup for the exercise. With your free hand, I like to brace against that knee that's up, and then you're gonna be thinking about driving your elbow down to your hip, like this. Now, because we're using bands, we're gonna be pushing into partial reps, which means I need this to be so hard that on your first repetition, you can barely pull all the way to the hip. So that might mean using a heavier band. It might mean backing up from the anchor point, but I need that first rep to be incredibly challenging because we're gonna be working into partial reps like this. Now, because we're doing partial reps, the end of your set should look something like this, where you're pulling with all your might, but you can't quite finish the rep. And I'll put in the notes where I want you to stop the set. But the end of your set will look like this, where you're pulling down as hard as possible, but you're finishing the set in this top half here, instead of stopping when you can't pull all the way here. Working with bands can have some downside when it comes to muscle growth, but the way we fix that downside is by pushing into those partial reps in a more lengthened position. So make sure you're pushing hard into those partial reps later in the set before calling it quits. Now, the biggest pain point for this is that when you make it that heavy, the band can actually be a little uncomfortable in your hand. It can hurt a little bit. So we'll go through 3 ways to make this more comfortable, and I really emphasize that you do one of these things. It will let you work harder without your hand being an issue. The first is just taking a hand rag and looping it over like this, so that when you grab the band and you go down, you're now gripping the towel with a little bit more cushion, and frankly, this is probably good enough for most cases. If you happen to own fat grips, this is a good time to use them. You open up the grip, you put it around the band like this, and then you have a nice grip that feels nice in the hand, and you can even use Versa grips if that's something you have access to, right? And so the movement's still the same, except you have that nice fat grip to pull on. And if you want to purchase these, they're wildly unnecessary, but you can find them in the resources under the training accessories. And last but not least is my favorite way to do this. If you own a D handle and a carabiner, and you can purchase those for pretty cheap, take the carabiner, put it around the band, and now you have a handle like this where you can use Versa grips or wrist straps, and you just have an all-around really comfy grip to do this pull-down motion.